Mom's text came through at 6:14 a.m. We changed the locks and gate code. Don't come by without calling first. That was it. No explanation. No argument beforehand. Just a quiet, digital exile delivered while most of Baltimore was still asleep. I stared at the screen of my phone, sitting up in bed, rereading those 14 words over and over, waiting for the follow-up that never came. The clarification. The joke. Something. Anything. But my screen stayed silent, the message just hanging there like a verdict I didn't know I was waiting for. I'm Natalie Harper, 32 years old. A project manager at a healthcare consulting firm downtown. I pay my bills on time, keep my apartment clean, show up when I say I will. Independent. Responsible. The daughter who never caused problems. And apparently, as of 6:14 this morning, I was no longer welcome in the Tosun home I'd grown up visiting every single Sunday without fail. Up until that moment, I honestly believed my family was normal. Maybe a little dysfunctional, sure, but whose family isn't? There were quirks, tensions, the usual stuff. But nothing that would lead to this. Nothing that would make my own mother lock me out like I was some kind of threat. There was Mom, Carol Harper, organized to the point of obsession, opinionated about everything from politics to how you should fold towels, always convinced she knew what was best for everyone in every situation. My dad, Lawrence, quiet, conflict-averse, the kind of man who physically disappeared into his garage or suddenly remembered yard work whenever tension entered a room. My younger brother, Trevor, 28, charming, reckless, the golden child who never seemed to struggle or face consequences no matter how many jobs he quit or schemes he started. And my grandmother, Dorothy, who had moved in with my parents 3 years earlier after her health started declining and she couldn't manage the stairs in her Canton Row house anymore. Nothing about our family looked broken from the outside. We took photos at holidays. We texted in a group chat. We showed up to things. We looked fine. But looking back now, sitting there in my bed with that text burning into my retinas, I realized the cracks had been there for a long time. I'd just been too close to see the pattern. Too willing to smooth things over. Too trained to keep the peace. I should have seen it coming. 3 weeks earlier, we'd been sitting around the dining table at Sunday dinner. Pot roast, mashed potatoes, green beans, the same meal Mom made every third week like clockwork. I'd mentioned, casually, just making conversation, that I'd just finished paying off my student loans. All of them. 6 years of payments. $43,000. Finally done. No applause. No congratulations. Not even a good for you. Just a polite nod from Mom, barely a glance, before she turned her full attention to Trevor sitting across from me. That's nice, honey, she said to me without looking. Then, to Trevor, tell your sister about your plans. Trevor grinned that easy grin of his, the one that had gotten him out of trouble his entire life. He leaned back in his chair, completely comfortable being the center of attention like always. He was launching a business. Some kind of craft brewery concept. Risky. No savings behind it. No real business plan that I could see. No experience in the industry. But Mom and Dad were investing. Not a little. Nearly everything they had. Their retirement savings. The emergency fund. Money they'd been setting aside for years. When I asked one question, just one careful question, about how they'd manage their own finances afterward if things didn't work out, the entire mood shifted instantly. The temperature in the room dropped 20 degrees. You always question everything, Mom snapped, her fork clattering against her plate. Not everyone plays life safe like you, Natalie. Dad looked down at his food. Trevor's grin faded into something colder. Grandma Dorothy squeezed my hand under the table, her thin fingers wrapping around mine. That small gesture said more than anyone else did that night. She saw it. She knew. I dropped it. Changed the subject. Went home feeling vaguely guilty for caring about my parents' financial security. That should have been my first warning. 17 days after that dinner, Grandma called me late at night. Nearly 11 o'clock. Her voice was shaking in a way I'd never heard before. Natalie, she whispered, like someone might overhear even though she was supposedly alone in her room. I need you to come tomorrow. Please. Don't tell your mother. That alone terrified me. Grandma Dorothy wasn't dramatic. She didn't ask for help. She'd raised 4 kids mostly on her own after Grandpa died young. She was tough, practical, the kind of woman who'd lived through actual hardship and didn't complain. If she was asking me to come secretly, something was seriously wrong. What happened? I asked, already reaching for my laptop to clear my calendar. I can't talk now. Just come. Please. She hung up before I could ask anything else. I barely slept that night. My mind ran through possibilities, each worse than the last. Was she sick? Had she fallen? Was Mom mistreating her somehow? That last thought felt disloyal even thinking it, but it sat there in my chest like a stone anyway. The next day, I left work early, claiming a dentist appointment, and drove to Tosan. When I arrived at the house, the same brick colonial I'd been coming to my whole life, everything looked normal. The lawn was mowed. The flower beds were neat. Mom's Lexus was gone. Dad's truck was in the driveway, but that didn't mean much. He'd probably be in the garage. I used my key, still worked then, and let myself in quietly. Grandma. I called softly. She appeared at the top of the stairs, looking smaller somehow. Frailer. Her cardigan hung loose on her frame. When she saw me, relief washed over her face, but also something else. Fear. She came down slowly, holding the railing tight, and led me to her bedroom on the first floor. She shut the door carefully, even locked it, before she turned to face me. Her hands were trembling. I need to tell you something, she said, and I need you to stay calm. I sat on the edge of her bed, my heart pounding. Okay. And then she told me everything in a rush, like she'd been holding it in too long and couldn't control it anymore. How Mom had been pressuring her. How there'd been conversations, then arguments, then something worse. How 2 weeks ago, a lawyer had shown up at the house, Mom's lawyer, apparently, with documents already prepared. Changes to Grandma's will. She wants me to leave everything to Trevor, Grandma said, her voice cracking. Everything. The house in Canton I still own. The savings account. The bonds your grandfather left me. All of it. Why? I asked, though I could already feel the shape of the answer. For his business. They said it's his one chance. That you're already established and don't need help. That family supports family. She looked at me with tears in her eyes. They said if I don't do it, they'll have to make other living arrangements for me. The room tilted slightly. Other arrangements. Grandma reached into her nightstand and pulled out a folder. Inside were printouts. Brochures for nursing facilities. Not nice ones. The cheap kind. The places you see exposés about. Tiny shared rooms. Terrible ratings. Pages and pages of them. Your mother showed me these, Grandma whispered. She said that's where people go when they don't cooperate with family. When they become difficult. I felt physically sick. My hands went cold. That's... Grandma, that's abuse. That's elder abuse. I know. She was crying now, silently, wiping at her face with a tissue. But what can I do? I live here. I depend on them. If they put me somewhere. She couldn't finish. Where was Dad during all this? I asked, already knowing the answer would make me angrier. Grandma looked away, down at her hands. He was there. In the room. He didn't say anything. He just stood there while she talked. Of course he did. Dad never stood up to Mom. Not once in my entire life. He just disappeared, withdrew, let her do whatever she wanted. I haven't signed anything yet, Grandma said. But she's getting impatient. She keeps bringing it up. The lawyer keeps calling. I took her hands in mine. They felt like paper. You're not signing anything. And you're not going anywhere. I'm going to figure this out. Natalie, please, you can't tell her I called you. She'll. I won't. I promise. But I'm going to help you. I'm not letting this happen. When I left an hour later, my mind was racing. I didn't know how to fix this yet, but I knew it wasn't legal. It couldn't be. Threatening an elderly person to change their will? That had to be criminal. I drove home in a fog, barely registering the traffic on I-83. I kept seeing Grandma's face, those brochures, the fear in her eyes. 3 days after that conversation, 3 days during which I've been quietly consulting with a lawyer friend and trying to figure out my next move. Mom sent the text. We changed the locks and gate code. Don't come by without calling first. That was when I understood. The locks weren't about privacy or boundaries or whatever reasonable explanation someone might assume. They were about control. They were about making sure I couldn't get to Grandma without going through Mom first. They were about isolation. I called immediately, my hand shaking so hard I almost dropped the phone. Mom answered on the third ring, her voice cold, clipped, rehearsed. Like she'd been preparing for this. Hello, Natalie. Why did you change the locks? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Professional. Like this was a reasonable question that deserved a reasonable answer. We need space, Natalie. Space? From me? I let out a laugh that sounded slightly hysterical even to my own ears. Why? What did I do? You're negative. You judge. You make Trevor feel small. You questioned our support for him, and frankly, your attitude is affecting the family dynamic. I stood up from my couch, pacing now. I asked one question. One. About your finances. Because I care about you. Well, that was one too many. Trevor is doing something brave, something entrepreneurial, and instead of supporting him like family should, you criticized. I didn't criticize. I asked a reasonable. We've made our decision, Mom interrupted. We need you to respect our boundaries. If you want to visit, you need to call first. We'll let you know if it's a good time. And Grandma? I asked. What if I want to see Grandma? There was a pause. A telling pause. Grandma is fine. She doesn't need you stirring her up. Stirring her up? Mom, what the hell is? She hung up. Just like that. Click. Gone. I stared at the phone in my hand, breathing hard, my face hot. I immediately called Dad. It went to voicemail. I called again. Voicemail. I texted him. No response. Then Trevor texted me. Just one line. You're making everything harder than it needs to be. I threw my phone onto the couch and pressed my palms against my eyes. This wasn't happening. This couldn't be happening. My own family was closing ranks against me because I dared to ask one careful question about a risky business venture. Or was it? No. This wasn't about Trevor's brewery. This was about Grandma. About the will. I'd gotten too close. Grandma had called me. And somehow, Mom had found out or suspected, and now she was making sure I couldn't interfere. 2 days later, Grandma called again. Her voice was even quieter this time, barely a whisper, terrified. They took my phone, she said. I'm using the house phone in the kitchen. They're outside. Natalie, they said if I keep talking to you, they'll move me. Your mother said there's a place in Glen Burnie that has an opening. She showed me pictures. She wasn't joking. My blood went cold. Grandma, listen to me. I'm going to get help. Real help. You need to hang on, okay? Just a little longer. I'm scared. I know. Me too. But I'm not going to let them do this. I heard voices in the background. Mom's voice. Grandma quickly said, I have to go, and the line went dead. That was the moment. That was when fear turned into something else. Something harder. Resolve. I contacted my lawyer friend, Andrew, first thing the next morning. Laid out everything. The will coercion. The threats. The isolation. The locked doors. The confiscated phone. This is textbook elder abuse, Andrew said grimly. Emotional abuse, financial exploitation, isolation. You need to contact Adult Protective Services immediately. Like, today. Will they take it seriously? Natalie, what you're describing is criminal. They'll investigate. And you should probably talk to the police too, just to create a record. I spent the next 6 hours making calls, filing reports, explaining the situation over and over to different people. A caseworker named Linda Martinez was assigned to Grandma's case. She was in her 50s, professional, compassionate but no nonsense. We'll do an announced visit first, Linda explained. It's standard procedure. Then, Depending on what we find, we may do an unannounced follow-up. My mother will put on a show, I warned. She'll hover. She'll answer for my grandmother. She's very good at appearing reasonable. We are trained to see through that, Linda said. Don't worry. But I did worry. I worried constantly. For 3 days until the first visit, I barely ate, barely slept. I kept imagining Mom coaching Grandma, threatening her, making sure she said the right things. The first visit happened on a Thursday afternoon. I wasn't allowed to be present. Conflict of interest, they said. I waited by my phone for 3 hours until Linda finally called me back. Your mother was very cooperative, Linda said carefully. Very friendly. Your grandmother said she was fine. Happy. No complaints. My heart sank. But. However, Linda continued, I noticed some things. Your grandmother was nervous. She kept looking at your mother before answering questions. There was a hesitation. And when I asked to speak to her alone, your mother became defensive. So what happens now? We are doing an unannounced visit. Tomorrow. And this time, we are not taking no for an answer when we ask to speak to Dorothy alone. I barely slept that night either. The next day, Friday, I got the call at 10:47 a.m. We are at the house now, Linda said. Can you come? Your grandmother is asking for you. I left work immediately, didn't even grab my bag, just my keys and phone. I drove to Tosan probably faster than I should have, my heart hammering the entire way. When I pulled up to the house, there were 2 cars I didn't recognize in the driveway. Official-looking sedans. Linda's car, I assumed, and maybe a police officer's. The gate was open. That gate that I'd supposedly been locked out of. Just standing wide open like it had never been a barrier at all. Mom stood at the front door with her arms crossed, her face tight with fury. When she saw me getting out of my car, her expression twisted into something ugly. This is harassment, she hissed as I walked up the driveway. You're harassing us. You're going to regret this. Step aside please, Linda said from behind Mom. She was a short woman with grey hair and an air of absolute authority. Natalie was invited. By me. Mom didn't move. This is my house. And this is a welfare check on a vulnerable adult, Linda said, her voice hardening. Step aside or I'll have Officer Brennan escort you outside. A Baltimore County police officer appeared behind Linda, his hand resting casually on his belt. Mom's face went red, but she stepped aside, glaring at me with pure hatred as I walked past her into my childhood home. Inside, everything looked normal. The same furniture. The same family photos on the walls. The same smell of Mom's lavender air freshener. But it all felt wrong now, sinister, like walking into a stage set designed to hide something terrible. Linda led me to Grandma's room. The door was open. Grandma sat on the edge of her bed, and when she saw me, she started crying. Not dramatic tears. Not loud sobs. Silent tears, the kind that come from being watched too closely for too long, from being afraid for so long you've forgotten what safety feels like. I crossed the room and knelt in front of her, taking her hands. I'm here. It's okay. You're okay. I was so scared you wouldn't come, she whispered. I'll always come. Always. Linda sat in the chair across from us, her notepad out. Dorothy, I need to ask you some questions, and I need you to answer honestly. No one is going to punish you for telling the truth. Do you understand? Grandma nodded, wiping her eyes. Has anyone in this house threatened you? Grandma glanced at the open door, where I could hear Mom's voice in the hallway, arguing with someone. Yes, Grandma said quietly. Who? My daughter, Carol. She said if I didn't change my will to leave everything to Trevor, she'd have to find somewhere else for me to live. She showed me places. Bad places. She said that's where ungrateful people go. Linda wrote quickly. When did this start? About a month ago. Maybe longer. It's been building. Has anyone hurt you physically? No. Just the threats. The pressure. And they took my cell phone 3 days ago when they found out I'd called Natalie. Where's your phone now? I don't know. Carol took it. The door suddenly slammed open. Mom stormed in, Her face flushed, shaking. That's enough. You're poisoning her against her own family. You're putting words in her mouth. This is ridiculous. My mother is fine. She's cared for. She has everything she needs. Accept freedom, I said, standing up. Accept dignity. Accept the right to make her own decisions without being threatened. Mom's eyes fixed on me with such intensity, one actually took a step back. You've always been jealous. Jealous that Trevor has ambition, that we support him, that he's not some boring corporate drone who plays everything safe. You threatened your own mother. I shouted. You tried to coerce her into changing her will. You isolated her. You locked me out to keep control of the situation. This is my house. My mother. My family. You have no right. I have every right. I was shaking now, years of swallowed words pouring out. She's my grandmother. And what you're doing is illegal. It's abuse. Mom moved fast. Faster than I expected. She shoved me. Hard. Both hands against my shoulders, all her strength behind it. I stumbled backward, arms windmilling, and crashed into Linda, who jumped up from her chair. We both nearly went down. Everything stopped. The room went silent except for everyone's heavy breathing. Linda straightened, her face hard as stone. She was already reaching for her phone. She said to my mother in a voice that carried absolute authority. That was assault. On me and on your daughter. In front of a police officer. Officer Brennan was already in the doorway, his hand on his radio. I need you to put your hands where I can see them. Everything happened very fast after that. Mom's face cycled through emotions. Rage, shock, disbelief, fear, in the space of about 3 seconds. She was attacking me verbally. I was defending myself. You can't. I need you to turn around, Officer Brennan said, his voice calm but firm. Hands behind your back. This is insane. In my own house. I barely touched her. But he was already pulling out handcuffs, and I watched, frozen in place, as my mother was read her rights in her own living room. The words sounded surreal. You have the right to remain silent. Mom screamed. Actually screamed. Lawrence. Lawrence. They're arresting me. Do something. Dad appeared in the doorway. He looked at the scene, the police officer, the handcuffs, Mom's wrists being cuffed behind her, me standing there with Linda's hand on my shoulder, Grandma crying on the bed, and his face went completely blank. That look I'd seen 1,000 times. The look that meant he was checking out, disappearing inside himself, refusing to engage. Dad, I said. Dad, say something. He said nothing. He just stood there. Lawrence. Mom shrieked. Call Franklin. Call our lawyer. Tell them this is false arrest. Tell them. Sir, you're free to call an attorney, Officer Brennan said. But your wife assaulted 2 people in front of me. I witnessed it. She's being arrested. As they led Mom toward the front door, she twisted to look back at me, and the expression on her face was pure venom. You did this. You destroyed this family. I hope you're happy. I hope you can live with yourself. I couldn't find words. My throat was tight. I just watched as they walked her out. Trevor's car pulled up right as they were putting Mom in the patrol car. He jumped out, took in the scene, and his face went white. What the hell? What's happening? Your mother assaulted your sister and a caseworker, Officer Brennan explained. She's being arrested. Trevor looked at me, standing in the doorway. Something flickered across his face. Confusion, anger, maybe understanding. You called the cops on Mom. I called Adult Protective Services, I said. Because Mom was threatening Grandma. She assaulted me herself. This is insane, Trevor muttered, but he didn't sound convinced. He sounded lost. This whole thing is insane. Dad still hadn't said a word. He drifted back inside the house like a ghost. Linda came up beside me. Natalie, I need to finish interviewing Dorothy. Can you stay with her? Of course. We went back to Grandma's room. She was still sitting on the bed, looking shell-shocked. Is Carol? She's being arrested, I said gently. For assault. Against me and Linda. Oh God. Grandma put her face in her hands. This is all my fault. If I just signed the papers. No, I said firmly, kneeling in front of her again. This is not your fault. You did nothing wrong. Mom did. This is on her. Linda interviewed Grandma for another 30 minutes, documenting everything. The timeline, the threats, the lawyer visits, the nursing home brochures, the confiscated phone, all of it. She took photos of the documents Grandma had saved. She called in another caseworker to serve as a witness. Then she turned to Grandma with a gentle expression. Dorothy, I need to ask you something important. Do you feel safe staying in this house? Grandma looked at me, then at Linda, then down at her hands. No, she whispered. Not anymore. Would you like to leave? Yes. But where would I go? I can't afford. She can stay with me, I said immediately. I have a 2-bedroom apartment. She can have the spare room. It's not big, but it's safe. Grandma's eyes filled with tears again. Are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything. Linda nodded. Let's pack some bags. Officer Brennan can escort us to make sure there's no interference. Over the next hour, we packed up Grandma's essential belongings. Her clothes, her medications, her photo albums, her jewelry box. Dad appeared once, standing in the doorway, watching. He opened his mouth like he might say something, then closed it again and walked away. Trevor didn't come back inside. As we were loading the last bag into my car, Dad finally spoke. She's my mother too, he said quietly. I looked at him, really looked at him, and felt something break inside me. Then where were you? When Mom was threatening her. When the lawyer showed up. Where were you, Dad? He had no answer. He just looked at the ground. You stood there, I said, my voice shaking. You always just stand there. I got in the car. Grandma was already in the passenger seat, clutching her purse. I started the engine and didn't look back. The legal fallout lasted months. Long, exhausting, infuriating months. Mom was released on bail after spending one night in jail. She was charged with assault, 2 counts, and the investigation into elder abuse was ongoing. She hired an expensive lawyer, Franklin Pierce, who immediately started spinning a narrative. Natalie was a disgruntled daughter who'd manipulated a confused elderly woman. The assault was accidental, defensive, a misunderstanding. Adult Protective Services didn't buy it. They had Linda's testimony, Officer Brennan's report, Grandma's statement, the documented threats, the nursing home brochures, the confiscated phone. But that didn't stop my family from mounting a campaign. Dad called me twice, both times with the same message. Your mother wants to apologize. Can we talk? Can we work this out? But when I asked if he acknowledged what had happened, he got quiet. It's complicated, he'd say. Which meant no. Trevor called once, sounding defeated. I didn't know it was this bad, he admitted. Mom told me you were being dramatic. That you were jealous. I should have paid more attention. Yes, I said. You should have. She did it for me, you know. The will thing. She wanted Grandma's money for my business. I didn't ask her to do that. But you benefited from it. Silence. Trevor, you've always benefited from it. From being the favorite. From never facing consequences. From everyone smoothing the path in front of you, while I was expected to just figure everything out on my own. I know, he said quietly. I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't fix this. He didn't call again. The worst part was the extended family. Aunts, uncles, cousins who barely knew the full story but heard Mom's version first. The version where I was the villain. I got emails calling me ungrateful, selfish, cruel. How could I do this to my own mother? Over a misunderstanding? Families should forgive. Families should stay together. I blocked most of them. The court proceedings moved slowly. There were hearings, depositions, evaluations. Grandma had to testify. She was nervous, but she was clear. She told the truth. Yes, Carol had threatened her. Yes, She'd been pressured to change her will. Yes, she'd felt trapped. Mom's lawyer tried to paint Grandma as confused, suffering from early dementia, easily influenced. A medical evaluation proved otherwise. Dorothy Harper was sharp as ever. Competent. Reliable. The judge was not sympathetic to my mother. In the end, the assault charges were pleaded down to misdemeanor battery with probation and mandatory counseling. The elder abuse investigation resulted in a restraining order. Mom couldn't contact Grandma directly for 2 years, and any inheritance discussions were prohibited by court order. Grandma's will remained unchanged, and a neutral third-party attorney was appointed to oversee her affairs to prevent any future coercion. It wasn't perfect justice, but it was something. Mom told people afterward that I'd ruined her life, that I'd destroyed the family, that I was vindictive and cruel. She started a narrative that she was the victim, a devoted mother attacked by her ungrateful daughter. Some people believed her. My Aunt Diane stopped speaking to me. 2 of my cousins unfriended me on social media. Even some family friends sent me messages dripping with disappointment. But I also heard from others. My Uncle Paul, Dad's brother, called me one night. "I believe you," he said. "Carol's always been intense, controlling. I'm sorry you had to go through this." A few of Grandma's friends reached out too, saying they'd suspected something was wrong but hadn't known how to help. And slowly, very slowly, Grandma started to heal. 6 months later, Grandma lives with me now in my 2-bedroom apartment in Fells Point. It's smaller than she's used to, and the stairs are a challenge, but we've made it work. I converted the spare bedroom, my former home office, into her space. We hung her photos, arranged her furniture, made it feel like hers. She laughs more now. Real laughs, not the polite, careful ones I'd heard at family dinners. She sleeps better. No more lying awake wondering if tomorrow's the day they'll move her out. No more walking on eggshells. She's started gardening again. We don't have a yard, but we have a small balcony, and she's filled it with pots of tomatoes, herbs, flowers. She spends hours out there, her hands in the soil, humming to herself. It's the most peaceful I've ever seen her. "I should have left years ago," she told me one morning over coffee. "After your grandfather died, I should have stayed independent. But Carol was so insistent. She said I needed family around me, that I shouldn't be alone." She shook her head. "I think she was planning this for a long time. The will thing." "Probably," I said. "I'm sorry you lost your family over this." "I didn't lose them, Grandma. They showed me who they were. There's a difference." She squeezed my hand. "You're a good girl, Natalie. Stronger than I ever was. I learned from you. As for my family, what's left of it, we exist in separate worlds now." Dad sent a card for my birthday. Just signed his name. No message. I didn't respond. Trevor texted once to say his brewery was officially open. He'd found other investors. He didn't invite me to the opening. I didn't expect him to. Mom sends messages through intermediaries sometimes. Aunt Diane relaying that Mom wants to move past this or hopes we can heal. But healing, in Mom's mind, means I apologize. Means I admit I overreacted. Means I pretend none of it happened. I won't. They tell people I abandoned them. That I stole Grandma away. That I'm bitter and unforgiving. The story spreads through the family network. Natalie, the difficult daughter who couldn't forgive a simple mistake, who chose to destroy her family over nothing. But the truth is simpler. They changed the locks. They threatened a vulnerable woman to serve their own interests. They isolated someone who needed protection. They showed me exactly where I stood in their hierarchy of importance, somewhere below money, below the golden child, below convenience. And for the first time in my life, I believed them. I stopped making excuses. Stopped smoothing things over. Stopped playing the role of the responsible daughter who keeps the peace at her own expense. I chose myself. I chose Grandma. I chose integrity over the comfortable lie of a happy family that never really existed. Some nights, I miss them. I miss the idea of them, anyway. The fantasy of what a family should be. I see other people's photos on social media, big family dinners, holiday gatherings, everyone smiling, and there's an ache. A grief for something I never really had. But then I look at Grandma, safe and content in her little room, tending her tomato plants, and I know I made the right choice. She deserves peace. She deserves dignity. She deserves to make her own decisions without fear. And I deserve to live without the weight of a family that only valued me when I stayed quiet and played my part. The locks changed that morning at 6:14 a.m. But really, they'd been changing for years. Slowly. Quietly. Shutting me out every time I questioned, every time I didn't follow the script, every time I prioritized truth over comfort. That text just made it official. And in the end, walking through a door that's closed is impossible. But building a new life on the other side? That, I'm learning, is exactly what freedom looks like.